Let me give you a simple truth that many people never learn. The more important your assignment becomes, the more criticism you will attract. When you begin to move with purpose, people will question you. When you refuse to conform, people will misunderstand you. When you rise above average thinking, people will try to pull you back down. But here is the mistake most people make. They stop their journey to answer every voice. They react to every accusation. They explain every decision. They defend every rumor. And before long, their energy is no longer invested in purpose, but wasted in arguments. I have learned something powerful in life. When you know who you are and you understand your assignment, you develop a discipline to protect your destiny. Never react, never explain, just ignore. Because not every voice deserves your response. And not every opinion deserves your attention. Reaction gives your power away. When you react emotionally to every criticism, you surrender control over your peace and direction. You must understand a very important principle of life. Whoever controls your reaction controls your behavior, and whoever controls your behavior is influencing your destiny. Many people think power is about position, influence, or resources. But in the kingdom mindset, real power begins with mastery over yourself. If someone can provoke anger out of you whenever they choose, then they have discovered the remote control to your emotions. They press a button and you respond. They say a word and you explode. They criticize you and suddenly your peace disappears. That is not authority. That is emotional slavery. The kingdom of God was never designed for you to live like that. True authority begins within. A person who cannot govern their own spirit cannot govern anything else. That is why wisdom in Scripture tells us something very powerful. In the book of Proverbs, it teaches that a person who rules their spirit is greater than someone who conquers a city. Think about that for a moment. Conquering a city requires armies, strategy, and strength. Yet controlling your own reactions is considered even greater. Why? Because cities are external territories, but your spirit is the headquarters of your life. If your headquarters is unstable, everything else will eventually collapse. Let me give you a simple picture. Imagine a king sitting on his throne. Now imagine every time someone in the street shouts an insult, the king jumps off his throne and runs outside to argue. Every accusation pulls him away. Every rumor drags him into a debate. How long would that kingdom remain stable? The entire government would fall into chaos because the king abandoned his position to respond to noise. Yet many people live their lives exactly like that. Someone criticizes you and suddenly you cannot sleep. Someone misunderstands you and you spend hours explaining yourself. Someone insults you and you feel the need to defend your identity. Meanwhile, your purpose is waiting, your assignment is waiting, and your destiny is waiting while you are busy arguing with people who have no authority over your life. Let me ask you a question that may challenge your thinking. Why are you defending your calling to people who were never assigned to approve it? Your assignment came from God, not from the opinions of observers. When you truly understand who you are, you stop reacting to who people think you are. Identity removes insecurity. When you are secure in your purpose, criticism becomes noise instead of a command. Even Jesus demonstrated this discipline. Many times people accused him, questioned him, and tried to trap him with arguments. Yet, there were moments when he simply remained silent. Not because he was weak, but because he understood something powerful. Truth does not need to panic in the presence of misunderstanding. Silence is often the highest form of confidence. A mature person chooses their response instead of allowing others to provoke it. That is the difference between reacting and responding. Reaction is emotional. Response is intentional. Reaction is controlled by others. Response is governed by wisdom. And when you master this discipline, something incredible begins to happen. People lose their ability to manipulate you. Insults no longer control your mood. Criticism no longer controls your direction. You become stable, focused, and unshaken. Because a person who cannot be provoked cannot be controlled. So the next time someone attempts to pull you into unnecessary conflict, remember this principle and guard your spirit carefully. Do not surrender your authority by reacting. Constant explanation reveals insecurity. Many people feel the need to explain themselves because they want approval. You see, one of the greatest traps that can imprison a human being is the desire to be understood by everyone. There is a deep temptation in all of us to make sure people agree with our decisions, approve our direction, and validate our identity. But the moment your peace depends on public approval, you have surrendered the independence of your purpose. Purpose was never designed to be voted on. Your assignment in life did not originate in the opinions of people. It originated in the mind of God. That means your responsibility is not to convince everyone around you. Your responsibility is to remain faithful to the assignment placed inside of you. But many people spend their lives doing the opposite. Instead of focusing on execution, they spend their time explaining. They explain their choices. They explain their vision. They explain their lifestyle. They explain their boundaries. And the more they explain, the more they feel pressured to justify themselves to voices that were never qualified to judge them. Let me give you a simple illustration. The sun rises every morning and floods the earth with light. It warms the oceans, it nourishes the trees, and it gives life to every living thing. Yet the sun has never held a press conference to explain why it shines. It does not ask permission from the clouds. It does not apologize to the night. It simply fulfills the function it was created to perform. That is the power of design. When you understand what you were designed to do, you stop wasting energy explaining why you are doing it. The problem is that many people are still uncertain about their identity. And when identity is unclear, explanation becomes a form of self-defense. You start explaining because you want people to accept you. You start explaining because you fear being misunderstood. You start explaining because rejection feels uncomfortable. But the moment you discover your purpose, something changes inside of you. You begin to realize that your life is not a debate. Your life is an assignment. There is a powerful moment in the life of Jesus that reveals this principle. When he stood before Pilate, he was accused, misrepresented, and questioned. Yet in many moments, he refused to defend himself. He did not argue with every accusation. He did not attempt to correct every misunderstanding. Why? Because he knew something very important. Truth does not panic when it is misunderstood. When your identity is secure, silence becomes easier than explanation. Let me challenge your thinking with a question. Why do you feel obligated to explain your decisions to people who are not responsible for your destiny? If they did not give you your assignment, why do they deserve a detailed explanation for how you fulfill it? You see, the need to constantly explain yourself is often a signal that you are seeking validation instead of walking in conviction. And conviction is the foundation of purpose. A person who knows their purpose does not move based on applause or criticism. They move based on assignment. Their focus is not approval. Their focus is obedience. Real maturity begins when you become comfortable with being misunderstood. That may sound difficult, but it is the reality of anyone who carries vision. Vision always looks strange to people who cannot see what you see. They will question your decisions, doubt your direction, and sometimes even criticize your courage. But if you stop to explain every step of your journey, you will never move forward, because explanation consumes energy that was meant for execution. So instead of trying to convince everyone that your path is right, invest your energy into fulfilling the purpose that was placed inside of you. Let your discipline speak. Let your character speak. Let your results speak. Because when purpose is clear, explanation becomes unnecessary. Distraction is the silent destroyer of purpose. The enemy of progress is not always opposition. Many times, it is distraction. You see, most people assume that the greatest threat to their destiny will come in the form of failure, hardship, or visible resistance. But in reality, many assignments are never destroyed by opposition. They are slowly weakened by distraction. Distraction is dangerous because it looks harmless. It does not appear like an enemy. It often comes disguised as a conversation, an argument, an offense, or a criticism. And before you realize it, your attention has shifted away from your assignment and onto something that was never worthy of your focus. Let me give you a principle that governs every successful life. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. And where your energy flows, results are produced. If your attention is constantly pulled toward negativity, criticism, and unnecessary conflict, then your energy will be invested in those areas. That means the energy that was meant to build your purpose is now being spent on defending yourself from voices that do not even control your destiny. That is why disciplined people guard their focus carefully. Focus is the currency of purpose. Let me illustrate it this way. Imagine a runner in a race who begins looking left and right at the other competitors every few seconds. Instead of concentrating on the finish line, they become obsessed with who is watching them, who is criticizing them, and who is trying to overtake them. What happens? Their rhythm breaks, their pace slows, and their progress becomes unstable. Not because they lacked ability, but because they lost focus. The same thing happens in life. Every time you stop your progress to argue with negativity, you pause your movement toward destiny. Every time you react to unnecessary criticism, you temporarily abandon the road that leads to your purpose. And the tragedy is that many people do not realize how much time they have lost until years have passed. Let me ask you a serious question. How many dreams have been delayed because someone stopped their journey to answer people who were never part of their assignment? In the kingdom mindset, focus is essential because purpose always requires concentration. The Creator never designed you to chase 10 directions at the same time. Every assignment demands attention, discipline, and consistent movement. That is why even Jesus demonstrated this principle. When people attempted to pull him into distractions, he often redirected his attention toward his mission. On one occasion, he made a powerful statement. He said that he must be about his Father's business. In other words, he was declaring that his assignment was not negotiable, and his focus was not available for unnecessary interruptions. People who fulfill their purpose understand this principle very clearly. Not every voice deserves your attention. Not every opinion deserves your energy. Not every criticism deserves your response. Some things only survive because you keep feeding them with attention. Think about a fire for a moment. A fire continues to grow only when fuel is added. Remove the fuel, and the fire eventually dies. In the same way, many conflicts in life continue burning because people keep feeding them with reactions, explanations, and emotional involvement. But a focused person refuses to supply the fuel. They understand something powerful. Every moment spent arguing with distraction is a moment stolen from destiny. So they guard their time carefully. They guard their attention carefully. They guard their emotional energy carefully. Because they know something most people never learn. A distracted person may be busy, but they will never be effective. And purpose cannot be fulfilled by someone whose attention is constantly pulled away from their assignment. So learn to protect your focus. Because every reaction to distraction is lost time. Ignoring is a strategic form of wisdom. Ignoring is not weakness. Ignoring is discipline. Many people misunderstand the power of ignoring. They think silence is a sign of fear, that walking away is a sign of surrender, and that refusing to respond is a sign of weakness. But let me tell you something very clearly. Ignoring is one of the most powerful weapons in the life of a person who understands purpose. It is a strategic form of wisdom. It is a kingdom principle that teaches control, patience, and focus. In life, not every argument deserves engagement. Not every offense deserves attention. Not every criticism deserves a response. Yet too many people allow trivial matters to dictate their mood, their energy, and their direction. They feed the fire of nonsense with the wood of their attention. And before long, their time is stolen, their peace is gone, and their purpose is delayed. Let me give you a simple picture. A child throws a tantrum. What does a wise parent do? They do not negotiate with a tantrum. They do not argue with the shouting. They do not attempt to explain why the rules exist. They stand firm, they remain silent, and they refuse to feed the chaos with attention. And over time, the tantrum ends because it was starved of the fuel it needed. The same principle applies to adults in life. Many conflicts, gossip, and unnecessary confrontations continue to grow only because people keep responding to them. Every reaction gives life to that which was designed to die. Every explanation prolongs that which should be ignored. And every engagement with foolishness delays your movement toward your assignment. The Bible gives us clear instruction about this principle. Proverbs 26:4 says, "Do not answer a fool according to his folly, or you yourself will be just like him." Notice that. Not answering is not avoidance, it is wisdom. Not responding is not weakness, it is strategy. To ignore when necessary is to maintain authority over your own spirit and to protect the energy that belongs to your purpose. Think about your life for a moment. How often have you been drawn into arguments, debates, or conflicts that did not belong to you? How often have you lost peace and focus because you felt obligated to defend, explain, or correct something that had no impact on your assignment? These moments are the silent thieves of destiny. They steal what cannot be regained: time, energy, focus, and peace. Ignoring requires strength, not laziness. It requires self-control, not apathy. It requires maturity, not avoidance. It is an intentional act of choosing what matters and refusing to be pulled into what does not. The moment you understand this principle, you begin to protect your assignment. You begin to conserve your energy for what truly matters. You begin to live without being enslaved by the opinions and provocations of others. Let me ask you this. If every foolish voice demanded your attention, would you have enough focus to accomplish your purpose? The answer is no. That is why ignoring is not optional for anyone who desires to fulfill a divine assignment. It is not a suggestion. It is a command of wisdom that protects your life and your destiny. Do not mistake silence for weakness. Do not mistake walking away for surrender. Do not mistake refusal to respond for indifference. Ignoring is strategic. Ignoring is kingdom-minded. Ignoring is the disciplined refusal to feed chaos with your attention. And when you master this principle, you will discover a freedom few people experience. You will move through life unshaken by offense, unburdened by criticism, and unprovoked by misunderstanding. Because the person who ignores wisely cannot be controlled by foolishness. So remember, not every voice deserves your response. Not every argument deserves your energy. Starve what should die. Feed only what will grow your purpose. Purpose demands emotional maturity. When you discover your assignment, your standards change. Purpose is not for the weak. Purpose is not for those who are easily offended, easily provoked, or easily distracted. Purpose requires emotional maturity, a level of self-control, and a discipline of the spirit that most people never develop. It demands a focus that cannot be shaken by criticism, misunderstanding, or offense. And the reason is simple: your assignment is bigger than the opinions of anyone else. Many people fail to fulfill their destiny because they react to every stimulus. A word spoken against them becomes a personal attack. A criticism becomes a war. A misunderstanding becomes a mountain. But purpose requires you to rise above ordinary emotional responses. It requires you to see beyond the moment and to understand that the energy you expend on offense is energy stolen from your calling. Emotional maturity begins with awareness. You must ask yourself a question before responding to anything. Does this deserve my time? If the answer is no, then you do not engage. It is not about ignoring people or becoming cold. It is about understanding that your life has been entrusted with a mission. And every moment you spend in unnecessary conflict is a moment lost in fulfilling that mission. Consider a captain navigating a ship through dangerous waters. If the captain stops at every wave, at every storm, at every distraction along the coast, the ship will never reach its destination. The captain must remain steady, focused, and guided by the vision of where the vessel is going. The same principle applies to life. You are the captain of your purpose. Do not allow petty arguments, trivial misunderstandings, or baseless criticism to pull you off course. Scripture reinforces this principle. In Galatians 5:22-23, we are taught that the fruit of the Spirit is self-control, patience, and peace. Emotional maturity is a fruit of the Spirit. Without it, your assignment is vulnerable to every provocation and every challenge. The mature person recognizes that their calling requires discipline over their own reactions, over their own emotions, and over their own impulses. Let me ask you a challenging question. How much of your life has been stolen by your inability to control your reactions? How many opportunities have been delayed because you allowed offense to dictate your behavior? Purpose cannot be fulfilled by someone who is emotionally immature. Your destiny requires steadiness, calmness, and the wisdom to know when to respond and when to remain silent. Maturity also allows you to conserve energy for what truly matters. Life will always have distractions, but the person who is emotionally mature chooses carefully where they invest their energy. They understand that every reaction to trivial matters is wasted power. Every unnecessary explanation is wasted breath. Every fight over misunderstanding is wasted time. Emotional maturity empowers you to protect your focus, your peace, and your mission. Purpose demands that you make deliberate choices about your responses. It demands that you ask, is this worth my attention, or is it a test of my discipline? It demands that you refuse to allow others to control your emotions. because your assignment is too important to be dictated by anyone else's opinion. The person who masters this principle walks through life unshaken. They are not controlled by offense, by rumor, or by criticism. They are guided by their assignment, governed by self-discipline, and focused on the work that God has placed in their hands. So as you move forward in your life, remember this discipline. Before reacting, before explaining, before engaging, ask the question, does this serve my purpose? If it does not, ignore it. Protect your peace. Guard your focus. Maintain your emotional maturity and continue to advance toward the destiny that belongs to you. So here is the challenge I leave with you today. From this moment forward, refuse to be controlled by offense, criticism, or misunderstanding. Guard your peace as a treasure. Protect your focus as a weapon. And commit yourself fully to your assignment without distraction or delay. Never react. Never explain. Just ignore. Master this principle, and you will discover a freedom few people experience. A freedom that allows you to move with power, clarity, and authority toward the destiny that was placed in your hands. Guard it. Protect it. Live it.